Right. So when somebody says, just reframing this a little bit, when somebody says, I guess Hogan was paid a lot of money for, or at the time, for what is the secret, and what is the Hogan secret? In your opinion, what do you think the Hogan secret is?
The Hogan secret is that there were 39 secrets. That's
Okay.
that. Well, I was just
And you've
jotting down.
identified 39 different things.
Yeah, I was jotting down just some ideas, concepts in Hogan's swing that I would say are uncompromised. Okay, you can't get to Hogan without. I've got a list of 39 things that you would have to do to be properly in the conversation. Starting with heavy head, okay, mass, um, hitting impact with something more massive. It's going to affect the impact than if it's light. Again, if I give the example of, say, I take this chair, give you a perfect example, and I hit this. So I've got a light piece of pipe here, right? I'm going to hit this chair.
Sure.
Right? This is light, right? Now I'm going to come over here with this 2x4, right? Right? So you can't say that mass isn't a factor in the impact. And it's been my disappointment with the scientific community, with the TrackMan machines and the flight scopes. They don't know. It doesn't know what mass that I have in the club. It's looking at the ball, and then it's extrapolating back and saying, if the ball was doing this, then the face was doing this, the angle was doing this, and so forth. I understand that. It's interesting. But where can I input the mass into the computer to say, okay, I've got a 16-ounce driver as compared with a 10-ounce driver? We're talking a third of a pound. I mean, people are talking about grams. People are talking about several gram lighter shaft or something, and we're talking about a third of a pound difference between a 16-ounce driver and, say, a 10-ounce driver, 11-ounce driver, right? Mass makes a difference. So when I've been on these machines, the numbers have been really, really squirrely because I'm using really heavy gear, and they have to be using some kind of a stock algorithm. It has to be based upon, they're saying, based upon, 10 ounces or 11 ounces or something, average thing. I'm coming in there with a 16-ounce driver, and it's throwing the numbers just way off. So I'm not really getting an accurate read. But I digress. Just coming back to the concept of heavier heads, that would be something that would be uncompromising because Hogan used heavier heads. He wasn't using lightweight persimmons, and there were persimmon drivers at 12 or 13 ounces back then. They just have a chunk of lead in there, and you could take lead out. Lightweight clubs was available back then, but the great strikers were going with heavier stuff. So if you have heavier clubs, then you also need stiffer shafts to support the heavier head. Makes sense, right? Heavier head, stiffer shaft to accommodate that. So what I do with my clubs is I have my shaft deflections set up the same from my wedge to my driver. So if I hang an 8-pound weight right here off the club, and it bends that shaft, and I can look at the curvature of that shaft, I want the same curvature from my wedge all the way to my 5-iron, to my 2-iron, to my 1-iron, and right into my driver. I want to have the same curvature of the shaft. What happens is, when I take a regular persimmon driver with a wood shaft, and wood and iron shaft, so this has been happening for a long time. But if I hang a weight from a typical wood that I might buy on eBay or something like that, and I hang the 8-pound weight.
You mean a graphite one?
No, just a regular wood shaft. Now, This does not have a wood shaft in it. This has a 1-iron shaft in it.
Oh,
This
shaft
is
meant for a wood. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
yes, yes. So
Mm.
in my clubs, I have iron shafts put in my woods so that I can have the same deflection rate. But because it's longer, it has to be stiffer because of the extra length. I have to
Yeah.
stiffen the shaft. So I actually had to cut off about 5 inches off a 1-iron shaft, put it back in here, and then add 5 inches extender underneath this grip to get this. In fact, you can see on this club where the extender, I actually extended right here. This is all just fake. I added this in. The
Wow.
original shaft was right here on the golf club. This is where the grip was. You can see it in this case where the shaft band, when you're going to see a shaft band is usually just below the grip, right? The
Mm.
shaft band is over a foot lower on my shaft because I had to tip it that much to get the shaft deflection to be the same as my wedge. Now, most people would not want to do that because they're going to be concerned that they're going to lose a lot of distance when they have a shaft that's that stiff. And they're correct in that because they're swingers. So if you're timing the release of the shaft and the shaft is really stiff, you're not getting much of a release of the shaft. It's stiff, you're not getting that extra swing that a looser shaft would offer. But if you're a hitter and you're hitting it with the whole club, like the 2x4 example, I'm now hitting it with the head, the weight of the head. I'm hitting it with the weight
Yeah.
of the shaft, the grip, and even into my body. So I actually don't lose any distance at all. I just get more control, and I never hit the ball left. So, so
So
I'm
beyond gear, let's get into some of like, well, let's just talk about the Life magazine article. What was the secret there, and what do you think is the relevance of that being like the end all be all secret of Hogan?
well. The cupped left wrist is just opening.
Is that what it was in
Yeah,
the
the Life
just
magazine
reiterate what it
article.
said in the article.
Yeah, I mean the cupped left wrist was the main thing, the so-called secret, the cupped left wrist, which is just opening the face, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
opens the face, which gives you the green light to then turn level and hard. Now, if you want to say that that's a secret, the problem with a secret is there has to be two secrets, at least two. If the secret is the cupped left wrist, we're opening the face, then we have to do something, right? You
Sure.
can't just have an open face and then come down and stall the body or something. If I've got an open face and then I'm just going to flip the club going through or something, just say, well, that's the secret. Well, no. If you're going to have the cupped left wrist, um, I would say you'd have to add to that a flat backswing, tripping the shaft, cupping the wrist to free your right down into the right thigh, and then a super fast aggressive rotation through the strike. And I've just named like 4 or 5 different things that are all applicable to that one concept of there being a secret. There can't be just one secret. Um, so yeah, the Life magazine article, it didn't produce another Hogan, did it? It didn't. A lot of people read that back in the 50s, and who were the closest, people to Hogan? I mean, I don't think there's been anybody. So, that secret is maybe it's a tip, and it's a good one. It's a good. I do that. Sure, I try and get the club into a cupped wrist at the top, but it flattens out because of the dynamics of the motion, right? So
Right.
I don't think that article in particular is really, it's giving a swing tip, I would say.
Right. 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 Let me ask you about that because I know that Gary Player talked to Hogan directly a little bit about
Sure.
this, and then I was hearing in an interview with Gary about how much he hates being laid off, that he would much rather be across the line. So just go to like how important like for is it just like if you want to come to approach Hogan's level, you just cannot be across the line?
Well, again, it's when we're talking about Hogan, right?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
interested in what Hogan did. I'm not
Hmm.
interested in what he said as much.
Okay.
I'm interested in what he did. I'm not really interested in what other people say that much. To some degree, I am. I mean, I'm interested, I should say, but like Johnny Miller talked about his conversation with Hogan, there was that the right he talked about the right elbow being locked up from P3 to P4, like it was just this bar of steel right here that was from right here to right here, and that you could say that would be one of the secrets because it doesn't allow the club face to roll over. If you keep the right elbow bent and the hands move on the correct path, and the left wrist is cupped, right? So this all works together, and it's moving around, and the hands disappear, and the club face stays looking at the target because the right elbow remains locked up and doesn't straighten and close the club face. So that's what he told Johnny Miller. And then you've got John Schlee, right, who was a big Hogan disciple. And John Schlee was like 6'4", right? Big tall guy. And if you watch Slee, his knees are bent like this because he's tall. He wanted to take advantage of flat lie angles like Hogan did. So, people criticized John Schlee's swing because he had the big lateral move, which was great, but his left knee would stay bent all the way into the finish. And they're saying, well, Hogan's knee straightened, right? People say that about
Hmm.
me also. They're saying, well, how come your hips don't turn and open up as much as Hogan? Because I'm taller than Hogan. So therefore, I have to bend my knees more. Coming through the strike, my knees are bent more like John Schlee's because I'm 6 foot and Hogan was 5'7" or so, right? So Hogan being shorter, he could have his knees a little bit more upright. If I was swinging like this, then sure, my hips could open up more because my legs would be straighter. But if I have to bend my knees more, I'm not going to be up on my toes going through the strike. I'm going to stay low through the strike, rotate level. Same thing with George Knudson. George finished with that left knee bent, as did John Schlee. But these are guys that are taller than Hogan, right? So
Yeah.
I don't see an incompatibility there at all. I see trying to take advantage of flat lie angles, which is the geometry and the technique of that. And in that sense, I would say that's uncompromising, you know, the flat lie angle issue.
Let me ask you, because this is something that I struggle with, and we talked about it before, is that through my swing, I kind of hyperextend the right arm. So opposite of what Hogan told Johnny Miller. If somebody is like pretty habitual, and especially because it feels powerful, it feels like if you want to
It
hit the
is.
crap out of something, you
Yeah,
want to straighten that right arm,
of course.
hard, and
Yeah.
do that. So, what is the process going under the hood a little bit of getting into a small part of your 7 hour Hogan module series? But what is the process of taking somebody who's kind of like built this habit of punching, this punch force habit, and straighten the right arm? To start to build, okay, we're going to replace that with like a lot of rotation and keeping it frozen more.
You just said it. That's what you do.
Okay.
You've got to
Yeah.
you got to swap it out. So yes, the right elbow is a power source. I mean, no doubt. This can add power, right?
Sure.
But this also adds inconsistency to the golf swing because now I've got an active toe that's flipping and rolling over, and as soon as this rolls over, I'm opening up the left side of the golf course to possibilities, right? If I don't allow this club face to roll over, then I've just eliminated the left part of the golf course. I recently played Pasatiempo and I played Cypress Point last week, and in the 2 rounds I missed one fairway, and none of them were left. I missed the first fairway at Pasatiempo. I hit it 3 yards into the right rough because I got out of the car after driving for 2.5 hours down there. I didn't hit any practice balls. Did a little bit of stretching and I leaked my drive a little bit into the right rough. No big deal. I had a birdie putt. Eliminating the left side of the golf course by locking up the right elbow. Now, who else did this? Jim Furyk, okay? Golf swing in a phone booth or whatever crazy thing comes down here, locks up that right elbow going through the strike. Beautiful. love Jim Furyk's golf swing because I love it from P3 to P4. I don't, all the other, whatever he wants to do to make it work to get the shaft down on the 430 line. We don't hit the ball in the backswing. This would be consistent with what we would teach in advanced ball striking. We don't really worry about the backswing. But again, we're in this conversation, we're talking about Hogan. So Hogan specific would be a smaller umbrella under the big umbrella. Advanced ball striking would have, hundreds of golf swing possibilities. Hogan is a very specific. So what would you do? Getting back to your question, you would increase your post-impact pivot thrust. So you would get fast here. So that you can allow this right elbow to stay locked up. Okay, most people do the opposite. They start throwing the right elbow at it, and they ignore their post-impact pivot thrust. So they're slow with the rotation going through. They're adding their power with the right elbow here, and they're pivot stalling, rather than doing the opposite here and accelerating the club. Gary Player, accelerate, accelerate, accelerate. Every time you see an instructional video with Gary Player, you've got to accelerate, accelerate, accelerate. That's my best Gary Player impersonation.
Okay, so then I've heard, I think the final detail I'd really like to hear more about, because you said something that I wasn't expecting you to say. But what are the hands doing then through that impact interval from, 2 feet before to 2 feet after the ball? We've heard so much about educated hands and stuff. And then we've also heard some modern teachers say, oh, the hands are really just vices and you can just rotate. What do you think the hands are doing and the role of the hands? And some people said it was really the secret was in how he used his hands. He could hit it from anywhere.
Well, you don't really need to roll the hands. There's no rolling the hands. What's happening here is that the wrist, we'll just go with the left wrist, for instance. All the left wrist is really doing is uncocking down to the low point. Now, in other words, if I don't uncock this wrist, then the club would be here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I keep the wrist cocked, so all I'm really doing is uncocking the wrist to get it down to the low point. And this is a skill set that needs to be addressed. And we address this in advanced ball striking and in the Hogan modules, dealing with our 3 ball positions, forward, mid, and back. And we learn to control and get control of this uncocking of the wrist so that we can land that thing forward, mid, or back, depending on how well we're controlling this. Low point is really, really critical. So what do the hands do? All they really do is they uncock, and they uncock about halfway. I mean, fully uncocked would be here, right? I could certainly uncock and take it right through the floorboards of this deck, which would be right here, way back here.
Yeah.
So this is where we need to train, and we do this working with the impact bag, and we do this in the advanced ball striking module 8 and module 9, which is where we deal with shot shaping, ball control, and we actually control our draws, straight shots, and our fades with the amount of up and down wrist cock.
And ball position or just with the wrist cock?
So most people, beginner golfers, their natural inclination to hit the ball is to throw the hands early, to close the face, right? They're trying to close the face, get to the top, and they go like this. They take their first golf lesson, and they go to see the PGA pro, and he says, okay, we got to get you coming from the inside, get rid of the over-the-top thing, and then we're going to have you roll the wrists over to start, to get rid of the slice, which works. That's what you would do to a beginner golfer, okay? But there's an advanced level now. There's a level beyond this, okay? And we talked about this the first time when we were over with Barcow over at the Metropolitan. And we talked about how controlling the uncocking of the wrist, I can draw the ball by let's say that there's a wall right here. Okay, I'm up against a wall. I'm gonna come on the 430 line. My backswing's the same. Trip the shaft down to the right hip pocket. Hands are gonna move low left and around, but I'm gonna try and get that club head to climb that wall. So it's gonna look more like that for the draw shot. I'm gonna take the wrist and I'm gonna dump it underneath the plane to hit the fade. I'm gonna uncock it and send it under to hit a cut shot that way. So that's the more advanced, sophisticated way of doing it. We've got all kinds of drills and stuff to teach our students to do this correctly, and then combining this with the 3 ball positions where you would have forward, mid, and back, and then you learn to draw and fade the ball off each one of those positions. Now you've got the paint pods to go out and play golf off side hill lies, downhill lies, uphill, any combination of the 9 different combinations of flat, downhill, uphill, side hill, down, side hill, downhill, side hill, uphill, below your feet, downhill, below your feet, uphill, all those positions. And you're going to be able to deal with all of that stuff.
What shot shape are you mostly hitting now? Because you've gone like more towards the Hogan uh, uh, way of. Are you playing like the Hogan fade as far as like the ball that just launches straight and falls to the right at the end, or
Off the tee, I generally play a left to right shot, low trajectory left to right, with a driver. Now, if I want to draw the ball, I'll hit the 2 wood off the tee, and my shaft is just a little bit looser in it. I've got more loft on it, so I can get the ball up and turn the ball right to left. So, and I have my shaft lengths the same between driver and 2 wood. So it's kind of like having 2 drivers. I used to do this back in college too. At a lot of courses, I would carry 2 drivers.
okay?
One that I would hit left to right and one right to left. So my shot shape is generally off the tee is a low fade. So that would be like the Hogan fade. I can, work it right to left with the 2 wood. And I use just the drill that I showed you there to draw the ball through adjusting wrist cock. Holding the wrist cock more through the strike will give me a baby draw because I'm not letting the club face roll over. I'm not trying to hit a draw by rolling it over, because if I do that, I'm opening up all the possibilities of that ball hooking. As soon as I have that toe actively going through, I'm opening up the left side of the golf course. I don't want to do that. I want to just open it up a little bit to where I can hit a little baby draw. I can hit it hard and hit a little baby draw, but the hook is still eliminated. Nick Price is a perfect example of a guy that did that. Played a right to left shot all the time and never hooked the ball because he did exactly what I'm talking about. Nick Price was like that through the strike. Okay. And he wasn't ever allowing the toe to cross over, to get the toe to flip over like this.
Let me ask you a question with the foot pressures like through the strike. I know that in the advanced ball striking thing, we have the thing where the carpet gets kind of crimped this way. Is the Hogan more torquing this way and this way, as far as like forward and back, and not as lateral? Because Hogan seems like the ultimate rotator. So what's different in the feet?
The difference, the main difference between in the advanced ball striking class, which I really recommend for most people. I think it's much better for this Hogan approach is for the extremist. The person that really wants to get into that. It's a lot of work. It's not a magic bullet thing, or it's a secret or anything like that. It's a program. It's very difficult, but at least for people that want that, they have a clear path to Hogan now through this. The difference, advanced ball striking, we would typically teach more of a sneak squat, because it's easy to, most people know what it's like to sit in a chair, to just sit in a chair. This is a very natural, easy sensation here. Now with Hogan, we're dealing with something different. We're dealing with the weight transfer to the right foot. You remember with a heavy club and a quick flat backswing, we're going to easily get that weight 100% over to the right foot. If I lift my left foot even 1 inch off the ground on the backswing, 100% of my weight is on my right foot. Even if it appears, the guys that are online that are teaching, never transfer your weight to your right foot or whatever, that Hogan was here, he had his weight on his left foot. It appears like my weight's on my left foot here. But if I go back fast and I lift this left foot off the ground, even just 1 inch, right? Even from right here, right? Even if I'm 1 inch, at that point, right here, 100% of my weight's on my right foot. I can't possibly have any weight on my left foot if I'm lifting my left foot off the ground. Okay.
And that's what you're feeling with the Hogan swing.
Still photo. I've seen a guy take a still photo and saying, look, all the weight's on the, it's just complete nonsense, because a golf swing is an active, alive, moving, a moving motion, and that weight is going to the right foot. Hogan would easily be able to lift his left foot off the ground a half an inch at transition. 100% of the weight is on the right foot. So, wide stance. What's different about it? Hogan would move laterally over to the left foot. So 100% of the weight on the right foot, pushing off the right foot, moving laterally, right here, saving the rotation. Hips, shoulders are closed. Nobody saved their rotation longer into the downswing than Hogan. Okay, hips, shoulders closed very, very late, so that then he can apply all the guns through the strike.
Gotcha.
To put shaft flex on the golf ball through the strike. Hold shaft flex through the strike. Why do we want to hold shaft flex through the strike? It's because if we pressure the shaft, if I bend this thing into the ground, you can see that this is a very stiff shaft. But if I can do that, that's putting a tremendous amount of pressure in my hands. And what is that pressure in my hands? Feel. If I'm not holding shaft flex, if I flex it at the top, come down quick, and I release that shaft as I'm coming into impact, I have zero of that pressure in my hands. What I just talked about here. If this is a 10, this is a 0. So the lateral move allows for the weight transfer, allows for me to initiate my downswing without opening up or moving my hands. So in other words, you can see that the club is moving towards the ball. And I haven't opened my hips up or my shoulders or done anything with my hands. By moving laterally, I'm starting my downswing. And now we're talking about like what Mo would talk about, right? And you see Mo like this.
It's kind of that when Mo would talk about that master move thing and it was like dumped under like that. That's kind of what you were talking about, how Hogan was going from under the plane to on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you.
It's all different ways of. It's all different ways of describing the same thing. When you would see Mo do that, he's describing it the same thing. There is some footage of Mo from way back, I think, in the 60s or so, and he was tripping the shaft really hard. Mo was really tripping the shaft hard. So, all this stuff takes practice and training, drill after drill after drill. This isn't easy stuff. It's not. And I'm still a student of this. I'm far from mastering this stuff, but I'll say that it's. I'm not an active player anymore. I don't play. Of course, when somebody calls up and says, "Hey, let's go play Cypress Point," I'm going to go. I have all of a sudden all these other things that I have to do just disappear. Or tempo or that sort of thing. I'll still play the great courses, and I do keep my swing in excellent condition, doing my drills and this sort of thing. Just purely
How often are
technique.
you
I
doing that?
only have technique. When I go on the golf course, it's not because I've been playing. It's not because I've been practicing or hitting balls or doing all this stuff or any of that. I just have good technique, and I go out and I hit the ball where I'm aiming. Just technique, and I can still play pretty well. I shot 72 at Cypress Point. It was only the second round I played all year. 4 birdies at 14 greens. Not too bad. A little windy out there. Justin Thomas was out. Is it? No, I'm
Justin
sorry.
Rose.
Justin Rose was out there that day. He played in the morning, and I don't think he was, I guess, a couple under par or something. I'm playing Persimmon and Blades. He's probably hitting it 70 yards by me or whatever. It's like two different games or whatever. But the fact that I could even be out there in the conversation with someone like that, it just goes to show what good technique can do. I'm not trying to pump myself up as a player. I'm just saying if you have good technique, if you're holding shaft flex and you can feel where the leading edge of the club is because you're holding shaft flex through the strike, I can now feel exactly where that leading edge is. I know exactly where that thing is. And if I'm working my hands from P3 to P4 and I'm keeping that club face looking at the target and I'm eliminating that whole left side because I'm not straightening the right elbow out and allowing that club face to roll over, which opens up all those possibilities over there, then it's not that hard to just go out and hit it in the fairway, and then from there,
John, let me.
it's just
Yeah.
iron shots to the green.
Yeah. John, let me ask you. Hogan had a flared left foot, right?
Uh-huh.
And is that a type of thing that the taller guys seem to have, like you, seem to have more of a square left foot and more lateral, and he had more of a flared left foot and more rotationary, like posting into the left hip. Is this also a difference because of height, or is it just style, or what?
Well, I think it depends upon where you want to put your emphasis. Okay, so if we look at what would a more squared up toe? Can you see that? Okay, here.
You can, yeah, great.
So if my toe is a little more square, then it allows for more rotation on the backswing, right? I mean, if I flare my foot out here, it inhibits what I'm doing here.
Hmm.
Clearly, right? You can see this. If my toe's out, and if I rotate my foot back to square, I'm increasing my rotation on the backswing. So for me, I feel it's more advantageous for me to have a good turn going back, especially as I get older. George Knudsen, who is a huge Hogan protege, closed stance wedges. I mean, George would sit there with his foot back on a wedge shot because he felt the importance for a turn and to have great access to the 430 line coming down with a closed stance, and then he would turn level, and you'd see the little Scotty Scheffler thing with the feet going as well. If you had the toe pointed out more, then your emphasis then is going to be more on the post impact side over here, which is then going to help you clear out and give you more access to a fuller finish, this sort of thing. So it's really a choice that you make where you want to put your emphasis. You would see a lot of these guys like Johnny Miller. You would see this foot actually turning, like be opening up through the strike this way, kind of the best of both worlds sort of thing.
Okay.
But in the case of Hogan or Knudsen, that weight transfer, George would talk about it moving from the right heel to the ball of the left foot. So you've got this diagonal weight transfer from the heel out to the ball of the foot, and then pushing off the ball of the foot, using that pressure to then rotate level. So there's a little bit of I haven't really explored the closed stance thing as much like George. It may be something that I do down the road. There may be something there. There may be a little gold nugget there, to set up and to, really, this is the George Knudsen stance, right? I mean, you can see that, right? That was, I mean, George really had that foot pulled back, went level, rotation back, tripped the shaft, and turned through it. Hogan in his book, he talked about with the longer clubs, the foot moving more and more back. So
Right.
I think it's important stuff. It's nuanced stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I answered the question, but for
No,
me,
no, no. I got it. Yeah, I think it's basically
yeah,
because you want a fuller backswing than, and Hogan
yeah,
was remarkably flexible, probably more flexible than anybody you or I have met. So I
yeah,
think
more
that's a big part
flexible
of
with
it.
me for sure.
Okay, so let's
Yeah,
talk a little bit finally about when we go to, so there's advanced ball striking, but then inside of advanced ball striking or separately from advanced ball striking, there's the Hogan modules. And this is something that people can pay a subscription to get this 7 hours of footage and also some personal direction about how to build their own Hogan swing. Like you said, it's not uh, an undertaking for the faint of heart or people without like a lot of time or real super dedicated to doing it. So just talk a little bit about the process you built out with these Hogan modules and what's in there.
yeah. So the Hogan modules, there's about seven hours of instruction in there. Very comprehensive. Just goes. There's no stones left unturned that I know of. Um, then we've got a third broken down into a 30-minute workout. So I think if you can work on that for three or 4 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week, and go through that, if you've got a half an hour every day to work on that, you could make massive improvements in this. Um, I think the Hogan methodology is the best way to strike a golf ball, all things considered, for ball control, good distance. I'm actually been picking up a lot of distance on my tee shots. Not It's been kind of a byproduct of doing the Hogan modules. I'm kind of surprised actually. I'm not That wasn't my objective
So
really.
so at Cypress Point, which is of course at sea level, and you're using this old driver from the 60s or something,
50s, yeah, I'm
and
using
a
a
modern
1956 Spalding driver.
56.
1956 Spalding Model 28 with a gamma fire insert.
And then a modern ball. How far are you usually hitting your drive when you get a decent one?
Well, I was, you know, uh, Jesse told me I'd hit one that was 280 yards, slightly uphill on the fourth hole. I was all the way up by the bunker out there. That's kind of where guys are hitting the modern drivers. Let's see, number 6, par 5. There's back-to-back par 5s. There's a fairway bunker out there on the right-hand side, and the last time I played it, I hit a good drive and I hit it into that bunker. This time I flew the bunker, probably flew it by 10 or 15 yards, hit the downslip and took me down there, probably close to 300-yard drive. It's going a little bit downhill there.
Right.
But I'm thinking I would say just realistically, I'd say I've picked up easily 10 yards on my drives, where I'd be probably hitting at 250, 255. I'm probably averaging 260, 265 now. Uh,
That's great.
some, of course, a little bit longer when I really catch it, but I'm not really a distance focused guy. I'm an accuracy ball control guy. So but it's nice to hit the ball a little farther. Sure. That's been a byproduct of it. I attribute that to the flatter swing uh, with more rotation, tripping the shaft, delaying the acceleration rate, and then just working the module 3 drill that we do in advanced ball striking. We do a little bit different a version of it in the Hogan modules. The starting position's a little bit different, and I've been doing that, and I think that's helped my post impact pivot thrust a little bit. So I think
Right.
a combination of those things has added some
And that's just the
club hits, I
physicality, and
think.
then just the physicality of doing the workouts consistently. You told me you're doing it 3 or 4 times a week, and it's a half hour to 45 minutes or so each time. So it's
Yeah,
got to
it's
be
exciting. I mean, it's really exciting to. I'm almost getting more interested in golf now because I'm hitting the ball really, really well. It makes it more fun to play when you're hitting it well.
sure.
I'm kind of curious as to where it's going. I mean, I'm 61. I'm going to be 62. Next month or January. So the clock is ticking, obviously. But I feel like I may have another, few years to max out. In some ways, I feel like I'm almost hitting the ball better than I've ever hit it. I mean, I would say my golf swing is better than it's ever been. And I would say I'm hitting it better than I have because I don't have to practice. I mean, I don't practice. I don't hit balls. I don't practice. I don't play. None of this stuff. And I go out there and I'm able to hit the ball, pretty respectably well. When I was on tour, if I took off 2 weeks, I was the basket case. I mean, I
Right,
just was
right.
lost. It was like starting all
Constant,
over again.
constant maintenance. Yeah.
It was constant maintenance, and I don't feel like I have to deal with that anymore, which actually is really enjoyable. I mean, I hadn't played, this year I didn't play a round of golf until October. So I went out to Pasatiempo. Last year I played Cypress Point in December, I think, and then I played Pasatiempo in October. So that gap from that long without being on a golf course, and I went out and hit 15 greens at Pasatiempo. I mean, I was just trying to hit greens, really. I wasn't trying to go. I wasn't particularly knocking pins down that much at Pasatiempo.
Sure.
A lot of it has to do with the golf ball. The modern golf balls don't spin as much, so I can't really shape the ball into the tucked pins and stuff like I could with a balata. It's frustrating for me to have that taken away from me as a persimmon and blade player because we like the high spinning ball that we can really shape and move, and it is not a good thing. I hope that the scientific community can come up with a high spinning ball, like a solid core ball with maybe a softer cover that spins more like a balata. I think with all the intelligent people out there in the scientific community that they should be able to do that. I don't think people want that. Like the average golfer doesn't want a high spinning ball that's going offline. But for the good players, you want a high spinning ball. And I'll say this: when I was on tour, all of us would go for the highest spinning balata ball we could. It was either the Max Fly or the Titleist, of course, the Titleist Pro Trajectory or the 384, the different balls that they had back then. There was very soft balata covers that we could spin. Nobody ever won a tournament with a Top Flight or a Pinnacle. Those balls went farther back then, no doubt. But I don't ever remember seeing a guy win with a Top Flight or a Pinnacle back in the 70s or the 80s. I just don't think you could, actually. I don't think you could hold the greens. You wouldn't be able to shape the ball well enough to be able to do that. The modern golf balls are better than the old Top Flights or Pinnacles. But
Yeah.
they had a Serlin covered ball back then, which is like a tough, you couldn't cut the cover. And there was a wound ball, like a Titleist DT. And it had a harder cover. I feel like the modern ball is like that. It's like playing a DT Titleist, a lower spinning ball. Of course, the modern ball goes farther than a DT Titleist would, but yeah, I think improvements can be made there for the
Back then
better.
with the old balls, would you every once in a while just get a dud, like a really bad ball?
I used to just bounce them. I would just
Okay.
bounce them and make
Right.
sure they all were. Yeah, I don't remember that happening too
Okay.
often. No, not a problem. The problem was that they would just cut so easily. The covers
Mm.
were so soft. If you just mishit the ball even slightly, you could put a little razor mark on it. Or sometimes you'd get like a little spider web thing looking on it. Yeah, I think there was improvement that could have been made in the ball technology. I would have loved to have seen a more durable ball that spun well. Maybe they could have experimented with different kinds of covers, different urethanes or something. The wound ball, I mean, I know it's not practical to all the, it's like 6 miles of rubber bands or something inside was golf balls with a liquid core center. I mean, very high
Yeah.
tech golf
Yeah.
ball. If you think about it, it had a liquid center, it had a little, like a size of um, a marble. So it had
Yeah.
liquid and then like a little rubber marble and then 6 miles of rubber bands and then a cover on top of that. Very complicated golf ball compared with what they're doing now is just put it in an injection molding or whatever and popping these things out. I think it was a much superior golf ball, the
Right.
Bellotto, the Wild Bellottos when they were in good shape. Yeah.
Okay, John. So if people are interested in advanced ball striking and or the Hogan modules or talking to you, what's the best way that they can get more information about this or sign up?
Simple advancedballstriking.com.
Okay,
From
great.
there, there'll be the links to the different things on the homepage. The main place is the forum, is where all the interaction goes on with the students and people that have been on ABS for a long time. That would be forum.advancedballstriking.com. And it's been good. We've had a lot of improvements. We've got, Bradley worked with me. Brad Hughes worked with me for many years, and he's taking these concepts out to guys on the PJ Tour. And I know a few that he's had quite a few guys have gone out and won now on the tour. And he's doing a really great job of taking these concepts and trying to find that fine line between golf 2.0 and 3.0.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I don't. I think the driver is the main thing. It's kind of a different technique. When you're talking about getting those kind of swing speeds, I just don't think the
So
body
like
can
with your
fast
gear,
enough.
you can swing like one swing throughout almost the whole set. But you think
Yeah,
with the modern stuff, you have a swing, but then you kind of need a different swing for the modern driver.
yeah. I've kind of come to the belief now that the driver swing with the modern is kind of like a separate swing. Like you would have a bunker shot. Like I would teach bunker play to be very different than what we would teach with regular advanced ball striking or flat lie angles. With the bunker, I would not teach flat lie angles. I bend my sand wedges really upright, actually, because I want the shot. I want the club head to be coming down quickly, steep, and then
Yeah,
not spending much time in the sand, like very
yeah, like a
U
V.
shaped and
Yeah,
not flat, because you could bounce and skull and all that. So we do a different technique for sand play than we do for hitting regular golf shots. I think that with the modern driver, you have to have a different technique. That being said, I don't think that technique is been very impressive for accuracy. I mean, I'm not really impressed with anything that I'm seeing on tour these days. A guy's just lasering it down the middle. I guess Scotty Scheffler is the best at doing that now.
yeah,
A lot of things that he's doing in his swing are exactly what we teach in advanced ball strike. The footwork
yeah.
and all that
Hmm.
stuff is
That's
exactly
using the
on point.
ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very very good. Yeah, for sure.
All right, great. Thanks for joining me, John. Everybody, if you're watching this video, be sure to click the subscribe button. Also, go over and click the join button that's there as well. I'm going to put up this full conversation on the member side of Be Better Golf. And go over to John's YouTube page and subscribe to him. John's putting up a lot of really interesting interviews with all different kinds of voices in the game of golf that I've watched almost every one of them, and they're always super interesting. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
Okay, we'll see you soon.